Welcome back for more of SVG Europe's coverage of the fall technology season in sports video production. It's an odd one, certainly without an IBC show to physically go to this year, but that hasn't kept the industry from continuing to innovate in this exciting industry that we work in. Brandon Costa from SVG, happy to be here with you representing SVG Europe, and to be joined by Stuart Russell, who's Senior Communications Manager at Ross Video. Everyone in the industry knows Ross Video well. Stuart, fantastic to see you. Hope you are doing well. Thanks for taking the time today.
No, my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. I wish more people knew Ross. I think you're being very kind.
Well, tell us a little bit about what the company's up to. What's new during what would have been this IBC season? Still offering opportunities to connect with your clients? Any new products? What do you guys have in store for September?
Yeah, I mean, plenty to talk about. Fortunately, I mean, as you said it just a moment ago there, to pick up on that. I mean, I'm sure everybody that you are talking to at the moment is reflecting on these very strange times. It's awfully frustrating. I mean, just putting the public health thing to one side, if that's even possible. You know, the sports teams want to go out and do their thing, don't they? You know, people want to be playing the games, they want to be competing. The fans are frustrated because they're not getting access to the content. There's been a lot of discussion in different European countries about people, you know, paying for satellite subscription services and not being able to see the content, and how that is going to shake down. Are people going to get their money back? So very, very difficult for everyone concerned, and so much frustration. I think that the positive thing perhaps in all of this is that we are seeing a few little shoots of recovery there. We have been involved in a couple of quite interesting projects recently. I mean, we have an in-house production services division at Ross, RPS. They're mostly or predominantly in North America, but they were involved in some fairly recent live tennis coverage, which went out on the Tennis Channel. And I think that was the first competitive live tennis since the lockdown began. And that featured our robotic camera systems that we manufacture. And obviously, you know, everyone was distanced. It took place at a private club in Florida. So we are seeing a few events now bubbling up again, a few little green shoots of recovery, if I can put it like that. Mm-hmm. But still very much, you know, when we talk to our customers, a big emphasis on how can we do this remotely? How can we do this by minimizing the number of people who are going to be present or are going to be in a studio? How do we use things like camera robotics, like automation, to really try and make the environment safer, to cut down on the number of people, and make that whole thing of, you know, working from home that bit easier.
Yeah, that's a huge factor, especially as you're seeing in a lot of these venues, both on our side of the pond in the U.S., but also in the U.K. as well. You see the tiered systems, so the access into the venue is certainly more challenging, potentially for broadcasters. So really interesting to hear about some of those robotic solutions. What are some of the other products that are sitting either that are new for around this upcoming IBC time that it would have been, or things that are sitting at the top of the product portfolio right now that you think are particularly of interest to the sports broadcasting?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we've been talking about fairly recently in the world of sports is the idea of a unified control solution for venues. Mm-hmm. You know, the situation in Europe is slightly different to North America. I guess in the sports market is maybe a couple of years behind the US. You know, we don't necessarily do it exactly the same way in Europe as you do in the States and Canada. So, you know, we have found there to be a great deal of emphasis on how to bring more efficiency into workflows. You know, even some of the biggest teams in Europe, some of the biggest stadia and venues, you know, they're not necessarily employing full-time people with a broadcast engineering background. Mm-hmm. You know, there is that big emphasis on wanting to improve the quality of content, wanting to be able to improve things like fan engagement, which we talk a lot about, but how to do that in a way that is still going to be relatively easy to use, you know, efficient in terms of the workflow. So this whole idea of a unified control solution for venues, that idea of having multiple products that all connect together, to produce that system that's easy to deploy, certainly very easy to learn and to operate, and using things, for example, like customizable touchscreen control panels, where we can work with the customer to create specific control panels that are absolutely customized to the user, to the operator, to their level of expertise, making it as simple or as complicated as they need it to be, depending on where they're at. So that's been a big part of what we've been talking about in sports.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Stuart. Well, this has all been fascinating. Real quickly before we let you go, look, no joke. We've talked about it. 2020 has been a challenging year, but as you guys look ahead, what's your roadmap look like for the remainder of the year and heading into 2021? What are some of the things you guys are trying to focus on?
Sure. Well, I mean, I touched on new product launches earlier on, and what we were doing round about the time of NAB show. We have another series of presentations coming up round about sort of October, November time. I think the last time that I looked, we've got about a dozen or so new products and significant updates that we're going to launch. That seems to be par for the course for Ross these days. You know, every large show we get well into double figures on the new things to talk about, which explains my grey hair, I think. But yeah, a huge amount going on. I mean, I would stay tuned, I think, for significant developments in switcher world. Certainly more going on, I know for a fact, in robotics. A lot happening in the world of routing and infrastructure. It's always tough when people say to me, what's the priority at Ross? Because we operate over about 20 different product categories.
Yeah, you guys
and
got a lot going on.
Everything's important. Everything matters. So, but I think those are the significant areas. In terms of sports worlds specifically, again, I think more emphasis on those themes that I talked about earlier, you know, efficiency, workflow efficiency, ease of use, just making these products more powerful, easier to live with, easier to learn. And, you know, in terms of the rest of this year, I don't know. I mean, I'd love to be optimistic and say that by the time we get to the last couple of months of the year, things will be back to a greater kind of sense of normal. I'm not convinced yet. I'm a little bit anxious as to what's going to happen back end of the year. I mean, I see that some of the shows in October, November have some of the trade shows have been cancelled or have made the decision to go virtual. So are we going to be quite back in the saddle by the end of this year, or is it going to be more kind of further into 2021? I suspect it's going to be the latter, but we'll be there. We'll be ready. You know, we're not hanging about. The pace of R&D continues undiminished. So you know, there's still going to be plenty of good stuff to talk about.
Oh, that's good to hear. Stuart, been a pleasure speaking with you. Hopefully next time, like we said, it can be somewhere in person. But if not, this was a nice substitution. We appreciate you taking the time, and send our best to everyone at Ross. We wish you guys nothing but the best going forward.
You're very kind, and thank you to everyone out there who's part of the SVG Europe community. You know, we get great support from you, and you know, we hope to see everyone in person sometime in the near future.
All right. He is Stuart Russell, Senior Communications Manager for Ross. Check out what they're up to and what many of the other companies are currently up to during this fall technology season and substitution of the IBC show. Just head on over to svgeurope.org.